Hello, hello. Welcome back to Become a Calm Mama. I'm your host. I'm Darlene Childress, and I am a life and parenting coach. And today's topic is the 3 unavoidable aspects of parenting. Really, this could be titled the unavoidable aspects of life, because the things that I'm going to talk about are universally true if you're a human being. And I got this concept from watching the Netflix documentary called Stutz, S-T-U-T-Z, about Phil Stutz, who is a therapist. And it was a documentary that Jonah Hill did about his therapist and the tools that Stutz teaches. So while I'm watching this, he says this sentence that there are unavoidable things that are true for all of us. And that is these 3 things. We all are going to experience pain, uncertainty, and constant work. And that these are the aspects of reality. And I was thinking about it when I was listening or watching this documentary, and I was like, that's actually true of parenting. That no matter how good of a parent you are or how perfect you are, which is impossible, or who your kids are, or how they're wired, or anything like that, that no matter what you do or don't do, or who your kids are or aren't, the reality is that pain, uncertainty, and constant work are unavoidable. And I wanted to bring this up on the podcast because I actually found this to be somewhat relieving. And I have found that to be true in my life, that when I stop fighting things that are inevitable, I have more peace, I have more calm. And this podcast has become a Calm Mama, and it really is about finding an internal state of being calm, where we are okay with our reality. And when you're truly deeply calm, that means that you can show up as the person you want to be as a mom. And part of that journey is becoming okay with pain. And I'm going to break these down. Being okay with pain, being okay with uncertainty, and being okay with the constant work of life. Before I break them down, I was talking to my coach about this and how I wanted to do this episode. And she said, yeah, as a parent, when you don't have kids yet, you create an idyllic version of what it's going to be like when you're a mom. And as she said that, I was thinking about my friend Sue and I, and how before we had kids, we thought, honestly, that we were going to, this is funny, but that we could envision ourselves walking along the beach, like a beach boardwalk. We lived near the ocean. So walking along the beach boardwalk with our hair kind of all nicely done, strollers, nice manicures, fit little bodies, where that came from. And we were just going to walk along with our kids, pushing them in the stroller and just talking and being like so happy with ourselves. And I always laugh when I think about that image, because the truth is it was hardly ever like put together or, felt that way. And that is a big truth about parenting. But if you don't recognize that pain, uncertainty, and constant work are going to be part of your experience as a mom, then when you are experiencing pain, when you are experiencing the relentlessness of parenting, the constant work of it, or that like feeling of like, oh my God, is everything okay? What's going to happen? That uncertainty. When you are experiencing those things, you start to think something's wrong with you. And that's the last thing I ever want you to think, is that something's wrong with you, because there's not. The truth is that this is how it is to be a human being. And the sooner or more fully we accept these 3 aspects of reality, aspects of parenting, the more peace we'll have. So I'm going to break them down just really quickly. I mean, obviously we know what pain, uncertainty, and constant work mean, but I wanted to talk about it for a second, because it's like, well, what are we talking about when we talk about pain? And I really think it's mostly the emotional pain or the psychological discomfort when things happen, or when you create things in your head, right? When you have uncertainty or you're overwhelmed by constant work, you can experience emotional pain. So what does that mean? It can look like sadness. It can look like grief. It can look like anger. It can look like anxiety, or it can be a combination. Most of the time, these feelings come from like actual situations of loss or rejection or trauma or disappointment. But in parenting, they actually can happen just because of the nature of caregiving to a young person, because it's such a constant work because there's so much work to it. And we have a lot of uncertainty around it. And so we can end up having a lot of we bring on emotional pain because of our own, feelings of self-worth or uncertainty or frustration. And so really we're thinking of, in terms of pain, emotional pain is this idea. So it is inevitable. We are going to experience pain as humans and especially as parents. Then of course, uncertainty, that seems obvious, right? It's the state or the condition in which something is not known, right? Where you don't know what's going to happen. Now, this is always true. We never know what exactly is going to happen. We have an idea. We can, predict based on evidence or based on experience. We can make some guesses and we can make some plans. But in reality, we don't really know. And I can see this with a lot of the parents that I work with. They're like, is my kid going to be okay? And I think what a lot of times you're asking is my kid going to avoid pain? And the answer is no. Your kid is going to also experience pain. That is certain. And so when you recognize that it is an inevitable part of your child's growth, is that they're going to experience psychological discomfort or psychological suffering due to distressing events. Yeah, that's going to happen. We want to, of course, make the painful experiences. We don't want to bring those on purpose. We don't want to intentionally create anything like that. Of course not. But the truth is, it's inevitable. So that is certain. It's certain that pain will exist. What you were often asking me is my kid going to be able to handle the discomforts and pain of life, the constant work of life? And to that I say, yes, I believe so. Let's equip them now. So the hope is in today. The hope is in now. The hope is in teaching your kids how to handle these 3 inevitable things while they're young, so that they grow up and they feel really capable, right? Then, of course, we have constant work. So we have pain, uncertainty, constant work. Constant work is honestly, I was telling Tiffany, you guys know my best friend, this concept. And I think she kind of gave me a funny face when I said constant work, I don't think she liked it because she really loves, free time and, having like a lot of flexibility in her life. And I love that about her. And I kind of challenged the concept a little bit. And I was like, no. Just to live, just to be a human being, we have to take care of our body. So no matter if you have like a job or not or what, you have to like eat and clean yourself and, clean your clothes and, go to the bathroom, stuff like that. So we always have to take care of our body and take care of our people, right? That's part of being in relationships with others, especially with children. Constant work is inevitable. And then, of course, taking care of yourself emotionally, spiritually, physically, relationally, that requires effort. I've been using this phrase lately, the relentlessness of parenting, and especially when you have younger kids, the physical relentlessness of it. I think about like hand, heart, head. So when you're real little, when your kids are real little, like 0 to 6, 0 to 7, you are using your body all the time. Like you're in, picking them up and carrying them and cleaning up after them and making meals. It is a very physical time period of parenting and raising kids. And then it kind of transitions where you're in your head because you're like 6 to 12, like you're problem solving, you're like working out calendars and who's going to camp when and pickups and who has a project. And like, there's just so much minutia that you're managing and you're in your head a lot and you're managing a lot of like details and coordinating and things like that. And then parenting switches to your heart from like 12 to 18, 12 to 20, where you like most of the things are managed. A lot of stuff is handled at school. You're not managing so many small details, like because they're in sports and things like that through the school. And then you aren't really doing that much physical stuff besides driving and like making some meals, but you're not picking them up and carrying them and putting in the bathtub and putting them out and wiping bottoms and all those things, right? But what happens is your heart gets really stuck where you're worried. You feel for them and you wonder, and that's when the uncertainty really kicks in, is when your kids are 12 to really puberty on, adolescence. So there's like a relentlessness to parenting, especially in those younger years. Constant work. So if we can't get rid of these three things, if we can't get rid of pain, if we can't get rid of uncertainty, and we can't get rid of constant work, what's the hope, right? And the hope is in changing our relationship to those things. Instead of resisting and fighting and avoiding pain, uncertainty, and constant work, allowing, accepting, embracing it, and changing the way we think and feel about it when it happens. That's our work. Now, I want to say that one of the traps that I personally realized while I was, listening to this, watching this documentary and hearing this concept, is that I think at some point in my life, I bought into a lie that I could avoid uncertainty with constant work. My brain tricked me in believing that if I am hypervigilant, hyper-planning, overworking, controlling, not letting others do things, and if I had all of it managed and I was like, really, really productive and really high standards and almost like, I've talked about this on the podcast, like perfectionistic or, but I don't see myself as a perfectionist, but like just kind of like very, very put together. Okay. If I had it all kind of managed, that then the future would be settled. I'd like have everything planned. So I thought through constant work, I could avoid uncertainty. And then the truth is, uncertainty still happened. Things happened that were not in my plan. And I would get very overwhelmed by that. Like a sick kid. Whew, that would throw me for a loop. Oh my God, my kids are sick, homesick again. I remember saying to the kids when they were littler, I'd be like, you can't be sick today. It doesn't fit in my schedule. You can be sick tomorrow. Who says that? That's crazy, right? But I really did not allow for uncertainty because I really wanted to hyper plan. And also I thought that if I was constantly working, I could also avoid pain. Like if there was some kind of experience of pain, I just go, oop, let's fix it. Like let's, solve for the problem. And I wouldn't allow for the pain. And I was really overworking myself and overdoing it and overperforming in parenting and in life because I was so afraid of the future and I was so afraid of pain in the future. Maybe you can relate to this. I have a feeling you can, because this happens a lot to moms. So they're thinking, I just got to get my shit together and I just got to make the plans and do all of these things and then everything will be fine, right? And then when things aren't fine, if you think I can prevent pain, I can prevent uncertainty through constant work, then when pain and uncertainty happen, you will then blame yourself and think, what am I doing wrong? And that's such a trap. it's not your fault that shit happens in the world, that bad things happen to your kids. It's not your fault. You can't prevent it, nor would you want to. And I'll tell you why in a second. But what I've noticed is that sometimes you're as a parent, you're like, where can I go to find some kind of guru or somebody who's going to help me make my life easier, right? Which I do help you do, but not by getting rid of pain, not by getting rid of uncertainty, not by getting rid of constant work, but by changing your relationship to those things. So let's talk first about pain. So learning how to, well, first see the inevitability of it. Becoming okay. Like I was thinking, like, we need to become less afraid of hard things happening, less afraid of, of pain and discomfort for our kids. We want to see it as inevitable and allow for it and become okay when it happens and not try to work so hard to avoid it. Because when you're working so hard to avoid pain, what you're missing is the pain-free moments of life. Yes, pain is inevitable, but it's not constant. So if you're working so hard to prevent it, you might be missing the moments when the joy is there, when the peace is there, those small little delightful moments when you're sitting around the table and all of your kids are there, or maybe you just have one or whatever, and you're just laughing about something funny. Those are pain-free moments, and we have to be present to see them. But if we're in the future trying to macro manage and predict the future and plan for it and solve for it, we end up not enjoying those pain-free moments. So we want to make friends with pain. We want to allow pain to come in, not as a permanent part of our life, not as a permanent like resident, but as a guest, one that comes and visits. One of the questions I always ask is, what does one do with sadness? And I once read this beautiful explanation of like, I invite sadness to come in and have a cup of tea with me. And we sit in it and we allow for it. And then when the cup of tea is over, I say, goodbye, sadness. We'll see you again next time. And allowing for it to come in and come out. And when you become okay with pain, your children will become okay with it too. They will learn how to deal with it. They will learn how to process the pain. That is the essence of resilience, is handling pain, not rejecting it, not avoiding it, not denying it, but allowing for it, moving through it, and knowing that it's temporary, knowing that it's okay, that you're resilient, that you can handle this discomfort, this pain, and it's not forever. That's having hope and a positive attitude. And that really is the key to emotional health. And when your kids have something hard or you have something hard and you want to push it away, you want to reject it, you are actually creating more, because you're creating more work for yourself and you're creating more distance from what is reality, and you're missing the present moment. There's that old quote, right? That pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. So pain is like a short-term experience. It's an in-the-moment thing. Suffering is when we dwell on pain, when we keep bringing it up and rehashing it and rethinking it or trying to avoid it in the future. You are creating unnecessary suffering. So pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. I think this quote's been attributed to like Dalai Lama, Haruki Murakami, like different people. It's like a Buddhist saying. But the idea is, yes, pain is going to come, but you don't have to like get stuck in it. Okay. Let's talk about uncertainty for a few minutes, because like I talked about what is uncertainty, right? It's like a state or a condition in which something is not known, right? That you don't know what's going to happen. Now, of course, that is true. We know that on a psychological, like on a practical level. You don't know the future, right? You don't think you're like a psychic or whatever. Maybe you do. I don't know. If you do, tell me, because I want to know. But okay, what happens with uncertainty is like sometimes there's a little bit more of a psychological fear that something's going to happen and that you're not going to be able to handle it, right? And you spend a lot of time in the future planning and processing and predicting and having make-believe conversations and running scenario. When you're in that state of trying to solve the future, you're actually in an anxiety spiral because your mind is trying to solve for something that it can't solve. And so you're going to keep, going in a cycle trying to solve a problem that's not solvable. The problem is actually in your mind. I love this quote from Eckhart Tolle from The Power of Now, which if you've never read it, a lot of the strategies to handle uncertainty and handle pain are discussed in his book. So I'll just read this quote because I really think it's helpful. He says, "This kind of psychological fear is always of something that might happen, not of something that is happening now. You are in the here and now while your mind is in the future. This creates an anxiety gap. And if you are identified with your mind and have lost touch with the power and simplicity of the now, that anxiety gap will be your constant companion." I love this. He says, "You can always cope with the present moment, but you cannot cope with something that is only a mind projection. You cannot cope with the future." This is so important because what we're doing is not making friends with uncertainty. We're trying to become certain in order to soothe our own anxiety, to soothe our fear, to soothe our nervous system. And the truth is that when the future shows up, you can handle it. That's called now. That's called the present. You are always equipped. You can always handle anything. I promise. I have had so many very, very, very hard things happen in my adult life, in my childhood, and I have survived every single one of them. I am okay. You right now are okay. Wherever you are, this moment, can you be here? Can you be now? Can you see what is okay about this particular moment in time? If you're out for a walk, pause my voice and just look around at the colors, the sky, the colors of the plants nearby you, the contrast between the concrete and the green, grass, small things. Look for a bird. Look for some beautiful color, pop of color. If you're in your car, just notice, feel your hands on the steering wheel, feel your bottom on the chair. If your kids are around you and you're making dinner, just smell the smells of the spices you're about to use. Just try to find a place to become okay with right now. That is the key to dealing with uncertainty. It's being present now. And this is how it actually works is you go present in the now, and then you go boop to the future. And then you have to remind yourself to come back. And then you go boop to the past and you remind yourself to come back. That's the whole thing what meditation is. Meditation is just training your brain to come back, come back, come back, come back. It's like you with your little kids. Come back, come over here, come back, right? That's what you're doing with your brain. So coming to this moment, being okay now. And then another mindset trick for dealing with uncertainty is being able to say, I can handle whatever happens. Anything that comes, I can handle it. Not because you are super productive and you plan for everything and all of that. It's like when the moment comes, I can take care of, I can handle it. That's just trust. It's just trust. And you need to be able to have that in yourself and your kids. If you believe that your kids can handle pain, they can handle disappointment, they can handle not being invited to a friend's birthday party, they can handle a skid, like a hurt knee, they can handle a bad grade, they can handle being cut from a team, they can handle, not getting all the favorite things they wanted for their birthday present, having rain, have something canceled, whatever. If you trust that your kids can handle that that frustration, and you're like, okay, I know you can feel these feelings. It's okay. Yep. You're entitled to your disappointment. You're entitled to your frustration. And knowing that feelings are temporary and they pass, and then the brain will problem solve and go, oh, well, okay, at least we can go tomorrow or whatever. It starts to solve and starts to soothe itself. You can trust that you can do that and your kids can do it. So uncertainty is all about anchoring back into the present moment instead of going into the future, and trusting that whatever present moment you're in, you can handle it. Isn't that beautiful? I think that's so beautiful. All right, constant work. Like I said, taking care of your body, taking care of your people, taking care of yourself, these are the requirements of living, and there will always inevitably be constant work, especially when you have young children. Children in general, but I do promise you it's not as much work. Like, I have a kid who's about to graduate from high school, and I have another one that's already in college, and I don't have that much work to do for them anymore. Like, it's amazing, okay? It's like super intense for a really, really long time. And then your list isn't just their stuff. Like, my list right now is a lot of stuff that has nothing to do with my children. Like, one of it is like, I want to look into buying a new agave plant for my front yard. Like, fun stuff like that. So it's not always going to be kid, work. But you're always going to have work to do because you're a human being. But the relentlessness of parenting does lessen. That is certain. I'm going to tell you that, right? It gets better. It gets easier physically. Emotionally, it's just hard because you're always going to have uncertainty and your kids are always going to have pain, and that's going to be true. So the work of life is sometimes it's, actual physical work, and then other times it's emotional work. It's learning to manage your own anxiety, learning to manage your own feelings, learning to allow and process hard things, taking really good care of yourself, taking care of your body, moving your body, eating foods that feel nutritious for you, reaching out to your friends, building relationships, reading books, or having a hobby, or spending time in the sunshine. Whatever it is, you are entitled to take care of yourself, and that is part of constant work. It's taking care of your body, taking care of your people, taking care of yourself. So those are the basics. So how do we make constant work less work, right? Isn't that the question? We want to make our work more manageable. So of course, I teach a lot about creating routines and, being able to teach your kids what's expected and how to listen and like how to follow your directions, because it does make it a lot easier if your kids are like, they know what to expect. So a small example is when my kids were young, I trained them. It sounds weird, but I did. I taught them that when they came home from school, they put their shoes in the shoe bin and their socks like in the laundry downstairs in the laundry room. So they put their socks and shoes away. They bring their backpacks to the counter, take their backpacks to the little backpack spot, take their lunches out. They would take all their plastic containers and put those in the sink. They didn't have to put them in the dishwasher, but they put them in the sink, and they would put their lunch boxes on the counter, and then they would empty the dishwasher. And I started this young. So we had this whole routine that they would come home and they would put their socks and shoes away, put their backpacks, put their lunch boxes, the containers, and then empty the dishwasher. And while they were doing those things, I was putting snack on the table. Obviously, they didn't go to aftercare or anything like that. That was just, that rhythm worked for me. And even if we went someplace after school, like we went to, the park, or we went to practice straight away, or went to the grocery store, or whatever it was, they still were expected to do those things regardless of when we came home. And that made my constant work way easier because I wasn't putting shoes and socks and lunchboxes and gathering stuff and finding water bottles and all that stuff. Oh, also, I did not send water bottles to school with my children. Straight up, you can argue with me. I was like, they're fine. They're not going to drink that much water. And if they ever wanted water, they could bring it. But I just did not make that part of my work. It was theirs. There was like a water fountain at school. They just drank like at lunchtime and recess. That's what I did as a kid. I'm like, I survived. So anyway, that creating routines like that is really helpful for a parent to not have so much work. My kids knew they had to put their laundry in the laundry bin. There's just stuff they did around the house, and they had to clean up before dinner and all the stuff. I just trained them how to live in my family and live in my life. And they did, and one had ADHD, one had sensory processing. They still did it. It's okay. It's just commitment. So sorry to rant, but creating routines, teaching your kids to listen. Also, like I just modeled, saying no to things that don't work for you. Managing water bottles did not work for me. I was just kind of a hard no on it. I was just like, I cannot keep track of this. I cannot fill these up. They're always losing them. This is so annoying. I'm out. I'm out of the water bottle game. So we didn't do them. Not people pleasing. So if you want to get out of constant work, like not get out of it, but you want to lessen your workload, don't say yes to things that you don't want to say yes to. Don't volunteer for stuff. It's okay. I was like Uber volunteer. I did all the things and great. It gave me some purpose and meaning and I liked it, but it's also okay if that's not your jam. Like you don't have to say yes. You don't have to host birthday parties or say yes to driving kids to, the playground and all of that if it's outside of your capacity. Lowering your own perfectionistic standards, right? Usually we have these high standards because we're trying to avoid pain and uncertainty. But when we're like, oh, pain is inevitable, uncertainty is inevitable, I can lower my standards a little bit, relax, and just, trust that I can handle whatever moment comes. That is another way to manage constant work, is just by creating less work for yourself, right? Isn't that amazing? So having priorities is really important. What's truly important to you, like our family, we did not do club or travel sports. We did a little tiny bit of like all-stars or some extras and stuff like that with soccer. But in general, we were sort of a hard no on giving our weekends away. I'm not saying that you have to do that. What I'm offering to you is that my children are okay regardless of whether they did team sports. I mean, like travel sports. They did sports, but we just didn't devote our lives to their sports because we didn't want to. To be perfectly frank, my husband worked a ton of hours. He did not work on the weekends and he wanted to be at home. And I wanted to be at home with him watching our children so I could relax. And he wanted to spend time with them and my kids wanted to spend time with them and they didn't want to be over scheduled. So we just didn't do it. It was great. I don't know. I'm just offering to you that you get to make your life work for you. So prioritizing what's important for us, it was downtime. We called it work recovery. So work has always been a big priority, especially for my husband, and then work recovery because he needs time off from work. Not every person needs that much downtime. So, do your thing, but you can also say no. You can say no to things that other people do and your kids are going to be okay, right? Because what makes someone okay? That they know how to deal with pain and uncertainty. So that's it. They don't need all the extras. The last thing I think in all of this that's really important is what I'm thinking of as radical grace. I think you as a mom or a dad, if you're listening, or grandparent, is really saying to yourself, like, I'm okay. I'm good enough. And I'm going to mess up and I'm going to not always show up perfectly. And that's okay. It's okay for me to be a human. It's okay for me to struggle. It's okay for me to be on a learning journey. It's okay for me to grow. It's okay for me to not be 100% know how to handle all this stuff, right? That it's okay for you to be a human. And giving yourself so much love and grace and compassion instead of saying, what's wrong with me? everyone seems to have it together but me. I talk to moms all day, every day, week in, week out. No one has it all together. Even the mom that looks like they do. Like, I probably look like I had it together and I didn't. We all are struggling and figuring it out and learning. And so extend grace to yourself and extend grace to others. And you'll find that you have a lot less pain, to be honest. Okay, mamas, if you are struggling with anything and, you're just in uncertainty and it's overwhelming, or you're in pain and it's overwhelming, or you're like, hey, what did she say about those routines? I want to know more about that. Reach out, book a complimentary consultation with me, and we can talk about how to work with me, what my programs are like, and, or I'll just listen to you and find out I like to get to know everybody. So I'd love to chat with you and get to know you, and help you with the 3 unavoidable aspects of parenting. So this week, I want you to give yourself lots and lots of Calm Mama grace. And I will talk to you next week. Hey mama, if you enjoyed this podcast episode, I want to encourage you to do 2 things. The first is go to my website, calmmamacoaching.com, and get a copy of the Stop Yelling cheat sheet. You'll get a step-by-step breakdown of the most important tool I teach, which is the pause break. And you'll also get 40 ideas to reset your body and balance your nervous system so you don't have to yell at your kids. You can get a copy of that, again, at my website, calmmamacoaching.com/stop yelling. The other thing I'd love for you to do is go to Apple Podcasts and rate and review this podcast so that other moms can discover empowering and helpful, practical parenting strategies, just like you did today. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. It means a lot to be in your ear every week and to support you on your parenting journey.